Good morning, Facebook. Today is Tuesday, the 28th of April, 2020. The time is 11:07 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. The lockdown carries on here in the state of Washington. However, around the United States, dozens of states are taking solid and proactive steps towards reopening, and there is even some movement to that effect here in the state of Washington. Just to begin with the daily figures, as of this morning, there are now 3,105,224 positive or confirmed cases of COVID-19 worldwide. Out of that number, there are 214,372 reported fatalities. The United States comprises nearly a third of the total number of cases. Currently, we are looking at 1,022,259 positive or confirmed cases in the United States, according to worldometers.info/coronavirus. We have lost 57,862 lives to this disease. We are far in advance of the second worst affected country, which is still Spain. Spain is reporting 232,128 cases. Their mortality rate still sits at over 10%, reporting 23,822 fatalities. Italy still has the highest percentage, apart from the United Kingdom. Italy is reporting 201,505 positive or confirmed cases with 27,359 deaths. The United Kingdom is reporting 157,149 positive or confirmed cases with 21,092 fatalities reported. So my mental math is not very good, but it looks like the United Kingdom is reporting the highest infection fatality rate if these figures are to be taken as accurate. Zooming in a little bit to the United States, again, our total confirmed cases at this point, 1,022,259 positive or confirmed cases with 57,862 fatalities. That is the highest total death toll in the world by a significant margin. In the state of New York, 300,334 people have tested positive for the disease. 22,866 New Yorkers have died from coronavirus as of today. Washington State is way down at something like 17th or 18th place. This is the list of states who have a higher total count of the virus than we do. There's New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Illinois, California, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Florida, Louisiana, Texas, Connecticut, Georgia, Maryland, Indiana, Ohio, Virginia, and Colorado are all reporting a higher number of people who have tested positive for coronavirus than has the state of Washington. The state of Washington is sitting at 13,686 positive or confirmed cases, and 765 Washingtonians have lost their lives. The state of Texas, I have touched on them before as having a significantly lower infection fatality rate than Washington State. Washington State's looking at 765 deaths out of 13,686 cases. Texas is looking at 690 fatalities out of 26,171 cases. Texas has nearly double the number of positive or confirmed cases as we have, and yet they have experienced fewer fatalities as a result of the of the pandemic. I still don't have any way of knowing what accounts for that discrepancy, but it is a very big difference. And the same thing with the big differences we're seeing in infection fatality rates between countries like Germany and Spain, and Germany and the United Kingdom. So that's worthy of note. The state of Wisconsin, where my parents are living, they're experiencing 6,081 cases. There have been 281 deaths in Wisconsin. And Nebraska is now up to 3,358 cases. There have been 56 coronavirus deaths in the state of Nebraska. Again, this according to worldometers.info.org. Let's not forget, there have now been 3 different antibody tests, which technically are called seroprevalence surveys. There have been 2 in California. There has been 1 in New York. There are 3 independent tests which all point to the same very illuminating reality, that the number of people in the United States who have caught this disease is far higher than was previously expected, far higher than the numbers that I report here from worldometers.info. Now, that means that the infection fatality rate is also a lot lower. I don't have the exact story in front of me now, but I want to say that Pennsylvania, within the last week or so, had to revise their death toll number down by 200 because they started factoring in different information into the way that they were tabulating their death toll. So it appears that at least in one state, both the numerator and the denominator, when calculating the mortality rate of this disease, are now in a state of flux. It seems like the biggest scientific experts who are examining and analyzing this phenomenon are still very much in the dark about it. It's Dr. Deborah Birx, who is on the coronavirus task force at the White House, has basically been giving the indication that we still don't know hardly anything about what this virus is, what its nature is, the various indicators of how it affects people, what's going to be the most effective treatment towards it. And they're just waiting to see, as the weather cools down in the southern hemisphere, how things are going to look there. And from there, they hope to get further information to further educate themselves and inform themselves what this virus really is, what it's all about. So it seems, while we are looking at numbers beginning to level off, while we are seeing a multitude of states beginning to take proactive steps towards reopening, and while it seems like many states that were badly hit have hit their peak, and that the rate at which the numbers are increasing has begun to drop significantly, we still don't know much about this disease. We still don't have anything approaching a vaccine. We still don't know what the most effective way to treat it is. And we're just watching around the world for even more data to emerge so that we can continue trying to fight against this thing. Now, in the state of Washington, the most solid movement yet that we have from Olympia and from our governor about how we're going to reopen our state and how we're going to try to bring life back to normal emerged yesterday in the form of a press briefing. The governor came forward and said that some restrictions are going to be eased. This can be found, the source material is adjusting the stay home, stay healthy to May 4th, 2020. We've known that's going to be the expiration date for a while. But we are looking, as of the 5th of May, the following outdoor recreational activities, when and where permitted, are authorized to commence so long as participants fully comply with the social distancing and coronavirus-related hygiene requirements, such as recreational hunting, fishing, and boating, outdoor exercise, including hiking, running, walking, and biking. Now, it's funny. I kind of thought that walking was allowed within the original proclamation all along. But there again, Outdoor exercise, including hiking, running, walking, and biking, as of May 5th, will be permissible. So will golfing and day use activities at public parks and public lands. It is cautious to indicate that this is not a return to normal. This is just towards the end of this proclamation. I continue to order into active state service the organized militia, etc. I again direct that the plans and procedures of the Washington State Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan be implemented throughout state government. It's cautious to remind people that camping and overnight activities are still prohibited. This is the exact verbiage from the proclamation. Additionally, except as exempted above, I continue to prohibit all other public and private gatherings and multi-purpose activities for social, spiritual, and recreational purposes, regardless of the number of people involved. Such activity includes, but is not limited to, community, civic, public, leisure, faith-based, or sporting events, parades, concerts, festivals, conventions, fundraisers, team sports activities, and similar activities that involve a gathering of people other than a household unit. This prohibition continues to apply to planned wedding and funeral services. So there again, we have finally some solid information changing the state of affairs here in the state of Washington with a date and with specific information, no longer just a loose framework and a promise that teams of experts will coalesce and discuss and then advise. So finally, we have some easing of the situation, although not much. While I was doing my reading this morning, I saw that the state of Ohio is going to allow retail commerce to resume as of May the 12th. Retail commerce in the state of Ohio will resume on May the 12th. And as I indicated in the figures at the beginning of this broadcast, Ohio does have a more dire situation than does the state of Washington. They have a higher number of people sick. They have a higher number of people who have perished. But they have indicated that retail will reopen as of May 12th. And that's important for me to note because that's my line of work. The state of Washington, our governor, is very adamant to distinguish himself from the president pushing to try to urge states and citizens to adopt a common sense approach to reclaiming their autonomy and their lives, and who has some desire to reopen our economy as a nation. The president's being routinely criticized as being an anti-science buffoon who cares more about money than he does about health and safety and human life. I can foresee our governor, therefore, in the state of Washington, wanting to be excessively cautious just to demonstrate to the world his adherence to science and to scientific data and his approach being guided by science. He's always very quick to point that out, as though he feels it's necessary to, by saying so, distinguish himself from his political opponents. I don't like Governor Inslee. I really don't. But because of his attitude, I can see his excessively cautious approach extending the type of reopening farther into the future than the 4th of May, when he says this whole thing is supposed to end, his lockdown. So in terms of when I will be allowed to go back to work at my job, I have no idea. Although it has now been a month and a half since I have worked because of this. My approach to things, the way I'm looking at things, is what can I say? I'm adjusting. I'm getting used to staying home. I remember saying in a previous broadcast, I don't want to get any more used to this than I am. Well, I've gotten more used to it now. And in a very weird, paradoxical way, I'm almost dreading going back to work, not because I don't want to work, but because the adjustment back into that mode of living after a month and a half of sitting around and trying to find things to do is going to be a rough adjustment for us all, not just for me personally, but also for my coworkers, my team, and our customers as well. I mean, the whole experience is going to include a wide margin of reintegration, getting back into things, remembering how to handle things. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how this is rolled out. And it's also worth note that it's not up to the governor when my company makes the decision to reopen its stores. Our company will make that decision of its own volition. I'd like to believe that they're just waiting for the green light from the government, and as soon as they've got that, off we go back to business. I can't be so sure, because my company decided to close its doors before there was a statewide stay home, stay healthy proclamation. We have no updates. We have no timeline. We're not being given any information or any sense of how long this is going to last from our management and leadership at work. We're in the dark. And that goes for the managers of the store. So we're just continuing on ahead. Now, some states, as I commented in the past, have been excessive in their requirements, in their mitigation efforts. Some states have taken it too far. The governor of Michigan, Whitmer, who's been amusingly called Half Whitmer, she's taken things too far. And apparently she's not the only one. As such, the Justice Department, the federal government, in the form of the Justice Department, has taken an interest in the concept of state governments encroaching too far onto our constitutional rights as American citizens. Yesterday, Attorney General William Barr issued a memorandum for the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights and all United States attorneys, the subject being balancing public safety with the preservation of civil rights. That's an important thing. Our civil rights, our rights under the Constitution, have been impinged to such an extent that in a lot of cases, the mitigation requirements are almost identical to a state of house arrest. A state of house arrest is only imposed on people normally after they have been subject to due process of law, presumed innocent till proven guilty, convicted, and then sentenced to these conditions. In this case, these conditions have been imposed on many, many millions of American citizens rather arbitrarily under the auspices of acting in the best interests of public health. And there is growing indignation throughout the country, a growing sense that this has gone too far, it's gone on too long, and it's too severe in many cases. Hence this memo from the Attorney General. I'm going to share with you some of the verbiage of this memo. The current national crisis related to COVID-19 has required the imposition of extraordinary restrictions on all of our daily lives. Millions of Americans across the nation have been ordered to stay in their homes, leaving only for essential and necessary reasons, while countless businesses and other gathering places have been ordered to close their doors indefinitely. These kinds of restrictions have been necessary in order to stop the spread of a deadly disease. But there is no denying that they have imposed tremendous burdens on the daily lives of all Americans. It continues. I just want to share the last paragraph. Many policies that would be unthinkable in regular times have become commonplace in recent weeks, and we do not want to unduly interfere with the important efforts of state and local officials to protect the public. But the Constitution is not suspended in times of crisis. We must therefore be vigilant to ensure its protections are preserved at the same time that the public is protected. I thank you for your attention to this important initiative and for your service to our country. And again, this memo was directed to the Assistant Attorney General and all United States attorneys. So if the Justice Department has concluded in any case that the restrictions imposed by the various state governments are excessive or unconstitutional, legal action at a federal level will be taken to make sure it's not going too far. For myself, I'm curious what's going to happen on May 4th. May the 4th is less than a week from now. It's next Monday. That is the final date of Washington's stay home, stay healthy order. It's been suggested that that could be extended. When I first saw in the news last night that May the 5th was going to be the date when those outdoor activities would once again be allowed, I took that to mean that the other stipulations of the stay home, stay healthy order would continue beyond the 4th of May, and that as of May the 5th, those other activities would be permissible. We're just going to have to see. There has not yet been any official extension of that proclamation. The other day, I watched the president give a press conference. This time it was not in that press briefing room. I think it's called the Brady room. I'll have to remember exactly what the name of that room is. But instead of holding the press conference in that room where I've been watching him for years, going all the way back to the Bush administration, this time the press conference was held in the Rose Garden of the White House. The last question that was asked of the president was as follows, and I quote, "If an American president loses more Americans over the course of 6 weeks than died in the entirety of the Vietnam War, does he deserve to be reelected?" I'm going to read that again. If an American president loses more Americans over the course of 6 weeks than died in the entirety of the Vietnam War, does he deserve to be reelected? That's not constructive. It certainly isn't objective or impartial. That question was emblematic of so much of what the media and the press in the United States has come to represent. That question was an encapsulation of the overall sentiment being hurled at the White House by the media. And it inspired me to go in search of somebody who's better with words than I am to articulate what this has become. As such, I have another piece by somebody who I've really kind of fallen in love with in terms of his writing style and his way of thinking. Mr. Victor Davis Hanson. This is something that he released 2 days ago. It's entitled About Those Press Conferences, and I'm going to share this piece with you now. President Trump seems increasingly ambivalent about the utility of the daily and sometimes marathon press conferences. He should be, and for reasons besides just their length and frequency. First, Trump gets bogged down into long back-and-forth jousts with touche Washington press corps. His impromptu skills, honed both as president and in his years on television, usually ensure him tactical victories. He is not preemptory, but retaliatory in his put-downs. Fine. Most Americans don't especially like the Washington press corps, so they don't mind them earning the repartee that their rude provocation deserves. But Trump's victories are becoming Pyrrhic, and I don't think I pronounced that word right. Capital Pyrrhic. I don't know what that means or how it's supposed to be pronounced. I'll look that up later. Anyway, back to Victor Davis Hanson. Anyone who watches the entire press conference sees the context and why the president is legitimately upset with the constant gotcha attempts while the nation has more serious concerns. But few in the nation do watch all of them. Instead, the public gleans bits and pieces of them as carefully edited sound bites delivered by print and television media. The result is that winning against a provocative Jim Acosta rarely delivers a strategic victory. Trump's retorts are cut and pasted into network news sound bites designed to make him sound petty at a time of national uncertainty and indeed panic. Good news, the virus seems to be more widespread but less lethal, and here earlier than once imagined, while its infectiousness is nearing its peak, if not descending in many places. But this good news is lost amid the media stridency. Instead, the public gets 20-second distortions in the evening news that Trump wants us to drink Lysol. Second, the coronavirus is not just a medical challenge, at least not anymore. How Americans will fare also hinges on the economy, our national security, and the viability of the Constitution. Trump, then, needs to allow Drs. Fauci and Birx their 5 minutes, but only their 5 minutes, especially given the media's gambit of trying to entrap both in some sort of adult-in-the-room, scientific put-down of the supposedly clueless president at their sides. Trump should shift some of the medical focus to include a rotating cast of other experts. And he should emphasize that, in making decisions as president, he takes account of all sorts of inputs besides medical modeling and theories about the trajectory of the virus. On some days, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs or the Secretary of Defense could reassure the nation that it remains secure despite challenges ranging from viral outbreaks on warships to Chinese and Iranian efforts to exploit the crisis to the status of North Korea. Attorney General Barr should make regular appearances to remind the nation and its governors that we still have a First and Second Amendment and the need to integrate public health concerns and constitutional freedoms. The Secretary of the Treasury or the other chief economic advisors should continue to weigh in with equal regularity on the plan to restore prosperity. The point, then, is that in a 30-minute press conference, Trump should be the conductor, but not overtly the main attraction. Paradoxically, in this way, he'd gain stature and become the implicit main attraction as all presidents should be. The conference should be a symphony of expertise, not a cacophony of media egos. A press conference paradigm might run something like this. The press conference begins. Trump offers a 5-minute summary of all the data, medical, economic, financial, military, legal, that he is adjudicating. Next, Vice President Pence, in 3 to 4 minutes, touches on these concerns in more detail. Then, each expert steps forward for 4 to 5 minutes and offers a concise update of what, if anything, has changed in the last 24 hours. After 25 minutes, the press gets 5 to 10 minutes of questions directed to all the presenters. Trump, as the conductor, calls on the questioners and directs them to the relevant members of his team. Trump then wraps up the 30-minute conference with a synopsis of 1 or 2 minutes, concluding, "Our team may see you tomorrow." A final suggestion. What Americans want to learn from the government is increasingly not what the Washington press corps wishes to pry out from Donald Trump. So why, in a national crisis, do we hear from only a handful of the usual suspects whose tired agendas and overt methods are now banal? Why not return to the earlier Trump paradigm, especially in our new age of Skype and Zoom, to include reporters from the heartland and rural America who would give some balance in their concerns beyond those of the New York and Washington corridor? Indeed, perhaps outsiders reporting from different states might even offer more light than heat about how the nation assesses and wishes to help the Eastern Seaboard. Cannot there be a stable of 20 or 30 or so reporters from Salt Lake City, Bakersfield, Des Moines, El Paso, and Biloxi, some of whom in each conference can pose questions that will probably be different from those in the Washington press corps, itself an increasingly ossified concept in a post-viral and remote brave new world? It is in the interest of the nation as well as the president to diversify the press conferences, shorten them, keep them to tight schedules, and to not let them become monotonously hijacked by those with little, if any, expertise other than in parroting, "I told you so," and "I got you." And that, again, is Victor Davis Hanson, writing for nationalreview.com, and that was published on April 26th. There was a distinctively different tone in that last press conference that I watched. That question, that final question of whether a president who's lost more people in 6 weeks than died in the entirety of the Vietnam War deserves re-election, that was nothing but an attempt to pick a fight. But the president's reaction was measured. It was not pejorative. And he kept his cool. I wonder if there's going to be another of these press conferences today. Who knows? I can feel this thing beginning to wind towards some kind of an end. The numbers indicate it. Various states taking solid action indicates it. Right here in my home state of Washington, although I'm not as optimistic as perhaps I'd like to be. Neither are most of the people I talk to about this, friends of mine, etc. But things are moving along. Things are evolving and developing. With that, thanks everybody for listening. Be good to each other.